So what did the NBA do? You know, these teams are always good. The same teams always win. They said, I tell you what, let's do this. Let's level the playing field. Let's institute a lottery system. So the modern NBA lottery began in 1985. The New York Knicks won the first pick. A lot of Knicks fans might remember back then, a lot of observers thought the lottery system was actually rigged to get the best college player in the largest media market. They may have something there. Now, the NBA lottery system is designed to help the worst teams get the best players and make the league more competitive, make the league more fair. My question, though, is why has it failed miserably? The lottery isn't going to make the last year's losers winning franchises. This is a lesson that so many people refuse to learn. You know, it's not necessarily the idea that people say, I can only make it through certain types of crutches and special programs, and if you forgive me for not doing this or achieving that. One of the problems is that there's a mentality that's passed from one generation to another generation. So it actually handicaps people in thinking that they can't make it for reasons other than the fact that they didn't try. Personally, I felt that the deck was stacked against me, but it helped to fuel my ambition. For others who felt that way, it nipped their dreams in the bud. I think, though, that we have to somehow reinstate the idea that you can pull yourselves up from the bootstraps and you can create your own path to success in this country. But when we tell kids they can do a subpar job because society is going to give them a pass, somewhere down the road it's not going to work. So in sports, some teams always seem to win, some always seem to lose, and it is a cultural thing. It's not the city, it's not the fans, although New York fans swear it's them. And there are some cities where the fans expect you to win. Now, why do some teams win and some teams lose? Well, let's take a look at Los Angeles. The Lakers are defending champs, winner of 8 championships since the lottery went into place. Their crosstown rivals, the Los Angeles Clippers, they've never been to the big dance. The Clippers have only been to the playoffs 7 times in 40 seasons. They rarely have a 500 season. So it's amazing stuff, and it speaks volume about something different, something about inner desire, effort, and belief. In fact, on the notion of perennial losers, in the last 25 years, the same names appear at the NBA draft lottery. The same general managers, the same owners, hoping for that single magical player that can turn it all around. How is it that every year the same teams get a crack at the best player, and yet they're at that same table a year later? It's really crazy to think about this. Los Angeles Clippers have been in a lottery 22 times since 1985. They've made the playoffs 4 times. All these efforts, 22 times a crack at the best players, and they're still perennial losers. The Golden State Warriors have been in the lottery 18 times. They've been in the playoffs 6 times. The Minnesota Timberwolves have been in the lottery 15 times. They've been in the playoffs 8 times. The Memphis Grizzlies, they've been in the lottery 13 times, but I think they've only been in the league 13 years, and they've only been in the playoffs 3 times. So all this effort to level the playing field artificially didn't work. Let's go to the other end of it, the spectrum here. Perennial winners. Since 1985, 5 teams have been involved in the NBA lottery. They have been least involved, rather, in the NBA lottery, have a combined 14 championships and 22 conference championships. The Portland Trail Blazers have only been in the NBA draft lottery 6 times, and yet they've been to the playoffs 24 times. They've actually won a championship. They've won 2 conferences. The Houston Rockets, they've only been in the draft lottery 6 times. 18 playoff appearances, 3 conference titles, 2 championships. The Utah Jazz, the lottery 4 times since 1985, just 4 times. San Antonio, 3 times. They've won 4 championships. And since 1985, they had a crack at the best player only 3 times, and somehow they've won 4 championships. Then, of course, there are the Lakers. They've been into the NBA lottery just twice since 1985. They have 8 championships since then. This illustrates how difficult it is to escape a culture of mediocrity and low expectations. Now, for me, this is not the history of America. In fact, when Tocqueville came to America, he marveled at the notion that everyone he met thought they could climb to higher levels of success. He actually snarled that everybody in America cared about money. Americans believed they could start with nothing and at some point have it all. But what happens to that drive once success has been achieved? Because that's exactly where we are now. America's problem isn't the same as the Los Angeles Clippers. It's more like the Chicago Bulls, who won 6 championships with Michael Jordan but have been floundering since. The change is illustrated also by great or formerly great American companies that have stumbled from positions of what I thought should have been invincibility, in large part because they rested on their laurels. For instance, General Motors, facing bankruptcy, needing an $80 billion taxpayer-funded bailout. They dominated the U.S. auto market. They dominated the world auto market. And they let it all slip away. In 1979, they had 46.5% market share of the U.S. market. But they lacked innovation. Arrogance was entrenched there. And the era of mediocrity began. Couple that with greed and poor management, and you get a company that's gone from 46.5% market share to this year, 18% market share. Budweiser is another example. Budweiser is now owned by a beer company from Belgium. That is absolutely amazing when you consider how powerful the king of beers once was. Now, I've never been a Bud drinker. I would ask if anybody's a Bud drinker, but maybe some of you guys aren't legally supposed to be drinking, so I don't want to blow up anybody's spot. But I don't like Budweiser. Still, to me, the company became very comfortable with this lofty position. They never diversified its product line. They didn't make acquisitions overseas, and they never checked the growth of their rivals. Another iconic American company, Mattel. It's really suffering. Barbie continues to lose market share. Mattel continues to make mistakes. In fact, last week the company reported its earnings, missed again. Now the stock has bounced back a little bit from the lows of last year, in part because they had a legal victory against a rival that produced the Bratz line of dolls. Here's the thing though. The guy that invented the Bratz dolls was working at Mattel. He begged them to take a look at his dolls. What did management there say? A little bit too ethnic looking. Go back to the drawing board. So the guy finally quit. Went to work for another company. They came out with the Bratz. Immediately the Bratz took 40% market share in America, became the #1 doll in the UK. In 2001, Barbie had 90% market share. These were gigantic companies that should not ever, ever have been knocked off their pedestal. Never. There's absolutely no way. The head start they had over other companies, the money, the power, they all became complacent, and at some point they accepted a culture. See, once it gets inside of your culture, it's really hard to escape. Speaking of culture, I want to talk about grassroots mediocrity for a moment. Now, these big giant companies, they fell asleep. And again, it's kind of easy because you know what? Your check was good. You got paid. You went on, you traveled on jets, and everything was still pretty good. So maybe it was kind of difficult to understand just how badly you were eroding the foundations. But the question is, what happens when this kind of stuff happens on a smaller scale? Not with an NBA team or with a large corporation, but when a city or a town goes into a funk. I want to take a look at the anatomy of a city where people have been walking zombies and simply stuck with their heads in the sand while they were being looted and degraded into second-class citizens.